I'd like to know a little bit more about your family's history.
Sure. Well, it was my grandfather was the one who made the foray there early last century and ended up in Rhodesia. He was, excuse me, a bit of an empire builder. And no, he was not Lord Rockefeller or whatever. I've read these things on the web that I'm a Rockefeller. I wish. But no, not that. My father left pretty much around about the time when I was born and moved to the United Kingdom because my parents divorced, and I stayed on with my mother. So I'm in that sense, I'm third generation only. My grandfather and my grandfather on both sides were in Rhodesia at that time in the 50s and 60s. And that was really the connection to Africa. Of course, we hail from Scotland, essentially, and England on both sides of my familial coin.
Okay. And then I would like you to talk a little bit about how you came to have the beliefs you have today about globalists. And was that something you developed when you were young or later on?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I get quite acerbic on the subject of globalism because, like most
No.
fools, I was suckered into an idea 20 plus years ago when I was younger and more idealistic. And was certainly when I was starting my Peace Foundation Humanitarian in 1999. At that time, I was very green around the gills, and I thought, the sign off on my letterheads and my logos and my websites was, humanitarian, one world, one humanity. And at that time I was conducting this diplomatic work and reaching out to the Henry Kissingers of this world and the Nelson Mandelas and the Dalai Lamas and meeting with the great and the good and the not so good. And trying to harmonize and create a foundation that could just broker peace through culture and interfaith and intercultural initiatives. That was my remit for myself, which was a very kind of reductive one. But so I was all about one world, one humanity. And then I started to see how the reason why many of these forces were going, oh, there's a good young kid. Let's back him up. Let's give him support and open doors for him. And, I started to realize the the globalists, the hegemonialists were the ones who were also talking up one world, one humanity, but they were not doing it for the right reasons. They were not about unity consciousness. They were about monoculturalism, about eradicating culture and society and community and family and even gender today, right? That's the Sabbatean, I would even say satanic logic that prevails today in the liberal intellectual West, is an offshoot of that globalist agenda, which pretends at unity, but is nothing to do with unity. It's everything to do with separation. So I learned that after a few years and made the separation in my own mind. But for me now, I will talk in terms of unity consciousness, but I don't talk in terms of one world, one humanity anymore because the syntax has had to evolve and grow up. I've despised the globalist agenda since I realized and recognized that this Borg-like creature only ever seeks to assimilate and desecrate all that is goodly and godly in human expression. And then you trail it and you look at it and you study it and you study the anthropological, anthroposophical, intellectual, historical, all of these perspectives, even geological perspectives. I mean, I'm looking out there at the red rocks of Sedona. What are they? Well, I'm speaking to very significant scientists who are telling me categorically that the forensics indicate, the huge mineral deposits from mining excavation, detritus from ancient galactic mining, undertakings, perfectly likely. But the point I'm making is that globalism desecrates anything that is righteous and goodly and godly. And that's why I've moved against it. Now, in 2009, I was inveigled into the United Nations, and I was wooed for many months by ambassadors and some good folk, I have to say, who said, look, we understand that you're very against the UN, and so are we from within inside. We can see what's happening and we're terrified. And we need a muscle like you in the NGO community to help come in and stir up the pot. And And I felt that that argument was compelling. At a certain point, I thought, well, okay, that makes sense. I am pretty fearless at that. I'm happy to wear a balaclava and do a leopard crawl into the basement of the UN and get a security clearance, so to speak. And I did. I said, I don't want coin. I never took a dime. I will never receive coin from an institution like that. So I didn't take any salary, but I did eventually become a director general the following year in 2010, when the secretary general at that point in the renewable energy sector and innovative technology sector approached me and said, look, you know, your own foundation, Humanitat, is doing so much to promote and promulgate breakthrough energy and technology and 0 point this and blah, blah, blah. Sustainability, the great catchword. And he said, can you come in and shake up the game in the UN? And I said, yeah, but only if I can control my portfolio. I do not want an office in the UN and I don't want a salary. And no one looks over my shoulder and tells me what to do. And I was given that special dispensation. So I set up my office largely in the Benjamin Hotel next to the UN in New York, paid for by myself. And I began work. I began setting up an initiative. In the course of 2010, I spent that year working on setting up what I believed would become a historic initiative called the EZ initiative, the Exemplar Zero initiative. And using my station as a director general, what I did was reached out to the Gulf states, the 5 Gulf states, and said to them, I want $1 billion each, to the rulers. I want a $5 billion fund. I want to call it the Easy Gift, the Exemplar Zero Global Infrastructure Finance Trust. And I want you people to be the ones who gift the $5 billion in. This is the quid pro quo. I will work with my economics policy unit and my technology innovation group. I will incubate breakthrough, innovative, sustainable, regenerative technologies. And you guys will get first dibs in the industry sector. So the back door will go straight to you, and you, the Gulf states, will become responsible for a true green revolution in the next 5 to 10 years. Brilliant idea, as far as I'm concerned. They loved it. They wanted to sign up to it. And 10 days before I was due to host a summit in Kuwait City, the EZ Summit, where I had world leaders flying in and looking in, and energy ministers and finance ministers coming in. And we were going to crack the nut on that day, and we were going to open this to the world and create this incredible beacon of light to engineers and scientists and innovators to say, come, you've got the solutions to remediate oil spills. You've got the solutions to remediate depleted uranium in the atmosphere. You've got the solutions to do this, this, and this. Bring them forward. We'll finance you, take you to market. That's how idiotic I was. That's how green and naive.
What year was this?
This was in 2010. So 10 days before the EZ Summit in Kuwait City, there's a dawn raid on my office and my staff are arrested. They think that I'm there. I'm not. I'm in London. Well, put it this way. I called a couple of the highest ranking political figures, motherfucker, to their face over the telephone with a translator, because I saw what had happened, that these people had set me up. Elements within, let's just say, these countries, coupled with elements within the top brass of the United Nations. Let's leave it at that. This is the Sabbatean technocracy I refer to subsequently. I know how power works. I understand the power pyramid, and it is not the capstone that is the problem. Never was. The Queen of England is never the problem. Until you get to the Jesuits, with the superior general or the Black Pope is absolutely the problem. But I'm saying that in most of the constructs of power, there's a separation between the capstone and the body politic. There is a little sliver between the capstone and the body politic, and that is where this Jesuitical Sabbatean element is installed that controls both sides of the equation. It's clever stuff. It's clever geometry, and curiously enough, that tethers back to Cecil John Rhodes and the round tables that he established back in the day, in the Victorian era. And that was clever. That was how to infiltrate the portals of power, by setting up a committee in the Royal Geological Society, let's say. Set up a committee. It's a Rhodes round table. And 2 of the men in that committee of 20, 30, 40 people, 2 of the men have an agenda. which is fed to them by, in this case, the Jesuitical Sabbatean element. And those two members of that committee start a campaign of festering and fostering and incubating antipathy and acrimony between the different members. They literally start, whispering in people's ears, oh, don't trust so-and-so. We heard him say this or do that. So that kind of Jesuitical devise infiltrates committees and creates dissent, foments dissent, and then creates an agenda and drives the agenda. And only two members of a committee need to know what the agenda is to be able to drive it forward. That's how stupid humans are. We're so prone to gossip and to falling victim to gossip. So that was the Rhodes Roundtable method that infiltrated the League of Nations, the United Nations, the IMF, the BIS, all of these institutions that on the face of it have a fairly decent remit. And yet, look at what they do.
Hey, if you like these kind of conversations and you'd like to see more, click like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're at the computer and you'd like to hear the whole podcast, click right here.